Hi, welcome to the McSherryStudio. Please don't forget to click the like button and also the subscribe button, and you will get notifications of all the new painting videos that I put up on this YouTube channel. If you like the paintings that are done in these demonstrations, you can always acquire one, and you can do that from my website, McSherryStudio.com, and there's a link in the description below. The like and subscribe buttons are just below this video on the right-hand side. Otherwise, paint oils, paint small, and paint often.
So the first thing I'm going to do is just make an all-over wash, because we want something to paint into that's not white. When you look at paintings that are painted directly onto white, they have a tendency to look a little bit superficial. Okay, especially in the skies. Not all artists do that, but the ones that don't do it, they solve the problem of these superficial looking paintings by using a lot more paint and making sure that they cover everything. The white poking through on paintings doesn't look great, but I like to put a wash on because it kind of gives you an additional, how would you say, kind of dimension to the painting. Like, it shows through and gives you the opportunity for happy accidents, something to occur within the painting that you didn't intend but still looks good. So that's why I use a wash. You can use the kind of, quite a deep colour if you wanted, but not too deep, not too strong. You need to be able to paint into this without sort of it affecting the paint that you put over the top. So what we'll do now is a drawing. Okay, so I'm going to use my burnt umber again, just for the drawing. Hang on, let's see if a little bit more burnt umber there. Okay, so a little bit of burnt umber. It's kind of more neat now, this. Okay, so I'm just going to divide up my canvas. This is what I do a lot for the work that I do. I've got something sort of that's not terribly immediate but needs sort of planning properly. For instance, the illustration work I used to do for the newspapers and everything like that. So I always kind of started out with a kind of I call it a Renaissance grid, just to help me know where I am on the canvas. It's not sort of super accurate. I'm not doing it with a ruler, so okay, go across there, and down there. So now I've got a kind of a grid that I can use to help me plan out the painting. Not vital. You can also do the thirds as well. That's another way of doing it. Or you could also use nothing at all and just sort of make it yourself. So kind of round about halfway, we've got the general horizon. There's a kind of misty trees, and there's a green coming up to it about there. So about a third of the way there, I'm going to do that. That's the path there. Generally, the trees stop around about there, and then there's a kind of another angle coming up here, which is the hill that's nearest us, and the tree there. And that can come across there, the shape of that tree there. There. Up there, that's good. Now, let's mark in this nice red tree here. So there's kind of a splotch of red there. Down here, comes down there. That's mostly red tree, all up around there. Let's mark it in, just kind of red tree. We'll make a kind of a notan out of it. A notan is just a kind of a two-tone representation, so it's beyond a drawing, but it's kind of very simple. Just gives you an idea of how your painting is going to plan out. So path coming up there like that. Now that all goes dark as it comes across here. There's dark there, which is underneath a kind of a a small tree there, and then it goes very dark here. This is the kind of thing that you can do if you're standing out in the forest with your painting set. You don't get down into super accuracy and drawing, painting up to lines. Okay, so, and then the rest of that sort of tree comes out, the green trees there. Kind of green tree, a break with a bit of darkness there, and then the other tree, and then the rest of that there is kind of there, and then it's misty beyond, and that needs to be sent into the background when we do that. Okay, I think that's the general plan of the painting there. Okay, something like that. All right, so let's I'm going to mix up the some green first. Okay, I'm going to do that by mixing some yellow and blue. Bit of tulips, bit of red into it to make it more natural. If I mixed that yellow and that blue, cobalt blue and cadmium pale hue together just on their own, it would make a very toxic looking green. So you put red into it, and you often find there's a lot of red in natural greens. Something like that. Okay. I'm just going to block in some of these greens first. Okay. So here. And here. Now, I'm not putting on very, very thick paint. It has been sort of, how do you say, limited a little bit. You know, I put diluted a bit, using a bit of tulips at the moment. Okay. There. Now I'm just going to add in a little bit more yellow to that, because I see as it goes off to here, it does get lighter up to the horizon. Right, I'm going to make a darker part to that. Just going to, this is my green. I'm going to add in a bit more blue, a bit more red. Get a darker version of the same paint, the same mix. Put that in there like that. This is just all to give me an idea of where I am, or where I can position all the other stuff, which is sort of mostly in the red space. Okay. Okay. Now, I'm going to put in some darks, actually. I think I could do with some darks to help me structure this painting a bit more. So I'm going to get some burnt umber and some cobalt blue. Okay, and then put that here. Fill that area, mass that in there. That comes up to here. Make it a little bit more natural. And have it absolutely like a straight line. there's a nice dark in there. And across there. Up there. And in painting, that you're generally talking about darks and lights. You're not sort of you're not talking about we're certainly not talking about blacks and whites. That'll just that'll throw you off in the wrong direction. And people start using neat black in their paintings, and it's you should never do that, really. Black is only if you have it on your palette. Anyway, I don't have it today on mine. It's only for making shadows. Okay, so across there. Okay, so now let's look at some of these russet colours. Especially on the left there, it's going to be quite sort of intense. So I'm just going to get some permanent rose. I'll put it up over here. Some yellow. And this time I'm going to add in a little bit of green into it. Got to temper that in the same way as you temper greens. Make sure that nobody's trying to get in there. Okay. Right. Let's. I'm going to add in a little bit of oil to that so I can move it around. And here we go. So going to mass in that area of that tree there. And the point of all this stuff is to make a painting, not to make a photograph. So don't get bogged down in details. At this stage, certainly. So that can come down there like that. This will give us a base to work from as we structure out this painting there. That's kind of red there. Okay. A bit there. So, I mean, this is kind of within a kind of a, you know, stone's throw of where we want to end up tonally and in colour later on. If I painted the whole thing green, in other words, the whole thing all the way over to here, and then tried to paint the red into it, I'd make an awful mess. So I've just separated out the main areas of colour and I brought them into the kind of colour space, you know, the reds or the greens or whatever that I want them to be in, kind of averaged out. And that way I can paint into them more successfully. Okay. Somebody, there's kind of some strange extraneous sounds coming in. So, okay. Right, so yes, that kind of pathway is kind of like ochreish, isn't it? And then there are some other ochre-y parts around those trees. So I'm going to get some yellow. You could have ochre, yellow ochre on this palette, but I find that in order to simplify things, you don't always need it. You can just make a kind of an ochre colour out of what we have here. Okay, something along those lines. Maybe redden it up a little bit. That'll help me with the path. So it's not a bright yellow. I'll move that in a wee bit. You see how it's different. It's a duller yellow. And let's go back to the painting. Right, so we've got these areas here. And this is a kind of a mix of the two. I'm just going to put that in there. Yeah, that'll do. And this whole stage is called blocking out. You're averaging out everything. There. That comes in there. So no fine strokes. Okay, that comes across there maybe. Right, let's do something with the sky, which is actually a mist. You're looking into a mist here. Definitely, it's an autumn day. It's kind of based around blue, and it would be useful to have blue in the against all the other colours anyway. So let's make it up from some white, put it over here, some blue, more white, yeah, and there's some crud coming out of my brush. I don't know whether you can see that. So if I do that, you can see that dirty bit of yellow ochre coming out of there. But actually that's useful to go into this, to make into a slight grey, a slight bluey, yellowy grey, for looking into the background. Now beyond that, or not beyond that, sort of slightly forward from that, are the trees which are in the distance. They're kind of, there's a large body of sort of damp air between us and those trees in the background. So let's take some of the tree colour and some of the ochre colour and mix it with that. Maybe a little bit of blue. We're going to make a kind of a grey. We're looking at the skies through the little bit of red, through the distance. And some of the trees will be greenish, some will be sort of, their leaves will have turned into those autumn colours. So we end up with a grey. And this grey is based on that, so it's harmonious. It's not a completely separate mix. Okay, so let's put in the, change camera. Yeah, so I'm going to put those in on the back there. Come across here, and those are just in the background. They're not going to be clear. We just want to get the sense that they're kind of slightly distant and in the mist. And now let's get some of the sky colour that we made. We'll put that in to the background. And here, well, I won't do it yet. I'll talk about that later. I'm just going to go up to that tree there. There's some foliage that I need to put in there as well. I'm going to go up to here. So you have to make a kind of a decision. And I know that people are always sort of saying that. Doesn't matter what stage they are. They're trying to make a decision about where to stop painting sky and start painting foliage. Because I've got all this stuff coming down here. I could have put that in. I think that was big enough, solid enough for me to have put it in. I just neglected to do it there. And maybe some of the stuff around here. So what you don't want to do is paint the entire sky around the tree and then start putting stuff into it. You need to make a decision. Like some of the stuff is going to be painted first. Some of that tree and the leaves and the branches are going to be painted first, and some are left out. And same with the sky. You're going to put the sky in, but you're not going to put it in everywhere because you want to leave some room for other things so you don't mess them up when you go to paint. Because here's a blue and here's a red. Whatever about the greens, if you put a blue and a red together like that, you're going to make a mud. Artists are always talking about, so, oh, the painting went to mud. And that's usually the reason why, because they didn't separate them out enough. You can't separate them out completely, if you understand what I mean. If you want to ask me about that later, face to face in the question and answer, remember that, and we can talk about it later. Just in case I'm not explaining it well enough. But you have to make a decision between how much of each you're going to put in. But you have to make that decision. You can't just make a blanket colour. You could in acrylics probably, but not in oils, because you're painting most of the time into wet paint, and you can turn to mud. Okay, I hope that's I hope that helps. Right, so going to get into some bluey greys that are there as well. Bluey greys that are in amongst all those further bushes, but are still being affected by the atmospherics in between. So it's going to make up into that grey that I made. Bit of blue, bit of red into that. Yeah, they're slightly on the purple side. Okay. All right, go back to the painting. For instance, around here. Okay, these are there's not very much of this going on here. And also in the path here. It's mud, I suppose, in the path there and there. Okay. There too. Right, and just let me put in some of those things that I said that I probably should have put in before here. No branches. I'm not putting in the branches. They can go in basically towards the very end to provide a little bit of definition. They don't need to go in now. And there's some greens coming around there. Okay, that's the blocking in done. Blocking in has brought us to this point where we can vaguely see the actual plan of the painting and how we want it to proceed. Okay, so let's get on with it then. Let's start. Now we're going to start putting in more detailed dabs. We're building it up like a mosaic. We've put our big stones down. The big sort of tessellare that mosaic artists use, to plan out things. And then we now start putting in small. The analogy doesn't work quite well because you can't sort of put little stones into big stones. But I'm trying to get across the fact that we've made an average of the painting, and now we can start putting in smaller strokes, which are more descriptive now. Okay, so for example, that ochre kind of colour, there's more of it around here. And we can start sort of even describing slightly the way that the tree is structured. Like pushing that out there like that. There. I might have to change brush soon, but so some yellow spots in there. They don't even have to be descriptive strokes. If you have a look at Cézanne, for example, very often all the strokes are kind of linear, going down, and it's great. Okay. Right, let's put in some of the more of that green. into it. Sorry, I'm just sort of preparing a bit more of the green. You saw how I made the green, that it has red into it. So the green that I'm making now has just got less terps in it. Okay, so I'm just going to sort of around here. Maybe some greens in there like that. And as the grass, you can see grass sort of on the right hand side of the path there, leading to a much lighter grass. The sun is obviously on it, or what sun there is on it. So I'm actually going to add some yellow and some white into the green just here. So we need to get the sense that the path is moving away from us into the distance. Okay, and a bright but less pale version here. Okay, and this is all very random here. You can just put in little strokes. All you're doing, I think, as a painter, is telling the viewer that there are trees here, without whacking them over the head with branches and leaves. I think that's where a lot of paintings go wrong, when they get too descriptive. Okay, so let's do something with the red areas. I think I'll go to the palette for this. All right, so let's grab. Ooh, need a bit more yellow. A trip to the art shop is in order very soon. All right. Now, grab some of that yellow into the red. So now I've got a different mix of that for the more orangey areas. That's fine, but I want some darker areas. I want to do a few more of the darks before, so I'm going to add some blue into that red and yellow mix. So I'll get a dark. That will help me around here, around the tree line. Where am I? Right. So around here. Now, I'm starting to get a sense of what might work in this painting. Because not only are we describing a scene, we also want to lead the viewer. We want to lead the viewer from here, where we're walking, down to here. So that's a feature of painting that you don't get in photography, for example. We're taking the viewer by the hand somewhat and leading them down the garden path. But in a sense, you tell a story with a painting. It's not just a representation. You're telling people about the mood of the day, your mood, the way that you can create things that are different from reality. There's all sorts of things that you can put into a painting to make it into art. You've got lots of things to work with. You've got sort of your colour, your the intensity of your colours. You've got texture, and you've got the composition itself. You need to use them all. Any more darks? Yeah, it's kind of darks up here that might be useful. Right. Now, let's put some of that lighter, more orangey strokes into this tree here. And the whole thing is kind of falling that way. So maybe our strokes could be like that. Don't overdo it. So we're still in a kind of a large stroke mode, which is making those big strokes not so I don't know what, obvious, or we don't want to go too. We don't want to be too descriptive. We just end up with a reproduction of a photograph. Keep it vague. That one's down here. There. Right, there's all that sort of russetness falling across the path in the foreground as well, but it's slightly on the dark side. So let's red. Okay, so all of this stuff here, don't make too much of it again. But we're well set up now to not make bags of it, because we've made a kind of a good solid blocked out sort of area. So it allows us to be more confident in the way we apply the strokes, because we've got the thing set up and we've started to see, well, okay, the possibilities are this. Okay. Now I want to move to a smaller brush. I'll go to this one. Yeah, okay. Because I don't want to be too small either. So there are some lighter areas along that path. See where the path goes into the light by the light green. It's very light indeed. So I'm going to mix some white. Mix some white into that kind of ochre color. Maybe I'll beef it up a little bit there. And there's a slight bit of blue onto it. A bit more red. Okay, let's try that now. I'm going to put that in there. And it occurs in here as well. It's catching light from between the trees along here. You really do want that to... Okay. I'm going to leave that. I'm scared to actually do a bit more of that. And I'm going to add in a little bit across there as well. Right, more russetness. And I'm going to go very much towards oranges now. So we've got all this here. I'm going to get more yellow, more red. Okay, and this is neat to paint there. So there's no terps in it or oil. Okay, and I'm just going to start putting in sort of indications. There's different kinds of trees. And I'm moving into some of these dark areas because obviously they're not great big holes. You know, there'd be leaves in there as well. So you need to just get across the fact that there would be things crossing those dark areas. Because sooner or later, we'll stop looking at the reference photograph and you start painting just what you want the painting to look like. Obviously there's things crossing the trunk of that tree. It can't just be one solid trunk all the way down. So we need to break that up a little bit. Look, and if I just dab the brush, dab it down, you know, look, I mean, the whole thing is taking on the aspect of a toilet brush anyway. Look at that, I mean, it's gone. But that kind of gives you the opportunity of just suggesting clumps of leaves. Okay, and in here there are oranges. Across there. There, we've got the path going there. Now, I want to do something with... Oh, yes, I need to put in some really quite intense reds as well. So I'm just mixing up just pure permanent rose and... Oh, I should do that for you there. I'm just mixing up a pure mix of those two. Okay. Just to put in some touches which are quite intense. I'm not going to overdo it. I promise, Milf, I'm not going to overdo it. You always go on these painting trips and you know, with other artists, and of course everyone's kind of looking at you and things like that. And I think most artists spend half their time sort of thinking, I'm not going to overdo it. There's somebody watching me and I'm going to ruin the painting by putting in too much. So now we have some... Here is... Now, another thing that we can do is we can start... I'm now really not looking so much at the reference. I'm looking at the painting and think, well, how can I improve this painting? I can't improve the scene, you know, that's sort of the work of the creator, you know, so all we can create is an image that represents it. So I'm going to... I didn't mean to get all metaphysical. I usually don't. But it's true, we can't sort of we can't reproduce exactly what's there, so why bother? So we make what's beautiful to us. And what's beautiful to us is that we can create things that people want to look at, hopefully. Alright, so what have we got? There's some greens in here which I think it would do well. So I've got some green already. So obviously this is a great big sort of mix of leaves in different sort of stages of decay. We can get a sense of that by putting in some of the those subtle changes in here. It's got to be a path that we would want to walk down, I think. Right. So now, yes, patterns. We could do with some nice patterns along here. So now we're talking about departing from the actual reference, because that's what we do as painters. going to make up some darks. Actually, that needs to be broken up as well. So, like we broke up this dark area or these dark areas by putting the color into it, we can also break up the light, the intense areas by putting some darks into it. Makes sense. We can sort of shaping out those areas there. That needs a bit of a definition there. Right, so yes, I was thinking of patterns, and I was thinking of like water. When you paint water, we did. Was that last week or the week before? It was last week, Venice, wasn't it? So when you're painting water, you can have these sort of lovely water patterns, and maybe we could do that with our background here. Now I'm painting very definitely wet into wet here, so you can't sort of. You can't put in too much because we don't want to turn it into mud. So darks in there. Okay. Not overdoing it. Don't overdo it, Kevin. Yeah. There, so now we've got some sort of vegetation sort of going along there. A bit more russet, sort of ochre-y colour in here, because this has got to be broken up too. We just need, all we're doing is giving the sense that the whole place is covered and littered with autumnal leaves. Okay. Now, I want to paint some green in those trees here. It's going to move them into a shape, just so that okay. And then the yellow trees beyond. On the tops of them there, I'm just going to have them catching the light a little bit. Make that a bit warmer than I have it. In there. And up there. Dabbing on some colour there. Now, I want to do something with the sky. Back to the sky, because we're going to shape what's around the sky. So we have this here, but there's not enough of it, so I'm going to make a bit more. Okay. So we've got that. It's a blue and white mix. There's a tiny touch of yellow into it, I think. And a tiny touch of red. Just so that it's more of a misty sky. All right. So all of this is going to go in here now. You can sort of shape some of those areas. It doesn't matter. Your skies don't have to be smooth. There can be a whole sort of conglomeration of dabs. And you can even dab into there just to show that there's light coming through in certain areas. Just dabs. Judicious ones. Don't overdo that either. Because we're after a painting. Even in here, it comes through the sky. Right. And you can see that this is based on the sky color. There's all that sky is between here and us as well. In you know, because it's a gas, and it has a kind of an effect on the environment around it. It's probably laden with moisture, and so that sends everything into the background. So this is what they call atmospheric perspective. In order to make something look distant, we make it paler because we've got the sky, lots of sky in between us and it, affecting how much of it that we can see. So all the colours become kind of washed out and pale. That's if you're looking, I mean, if you're looking towards the sun, it's different. Things become darker, don't they? But here, we don't know where the sun is, but there is light, and there's lots of distance between us and that. Okay, so, and in that case, this needs to be broken up. Let's put that there, just. And we'll break that up there. And put a bit of blue into that tree trunk, just for pig iron. See what it looks like. Because paintings are kind of largely based on contrasts, so that you can see. But the contrasts don't have to be tonal contrasts, black and white. They can be color contrasts as well. So if you're familiar with the color wheel, you know, if you've got one color on one side, look across the wheel and the color on the other side. If you mix those two together, you can make the shadow of whatever color is your. So if you've got a yellow and a blue, if you want to make a shadow of yellow, you can put blue into it. You put the color that's opposite into it. There's all sorts of things that you can do with color, and not just tone. I'm putting blue into the shadows of the unlit leaves of this tree. Up around there. And I'm just going to get my small brush now. Move it around. I'm still not sort of doing details, but I just wanted that to be more, I don't know, more obvious, I suppose, there. Because we're trying to draw people in over here, because that's where we're going. We're going to go and sit on that green there. There's still a little bit of sunshine left, and we want to walk over and sit on that section where there's a bit of light, still a little bit of warmth. Moving. And I'm just going to put in an indication. Hang on, just put it in there, around there as well. Of some tree trunks and branches and things like that. So if I come here. And they're intermittent. You can't always see them. If they're not too important, then don't put them in. Here as well. Lightly put in, just I thought those would be useful there, just to sort of give an indication that this is banked up rather than just a flat surface. For a variation in there. Some darks just for definition. You don't have to be super accurate to them anyway. And then just some sort of little finishing dabs. Coming down here. Because everything's crossing over everything else, if you see what I mean. So. Okay, and some ochre-y and there's two little figures walking over to the right. You can unmute yourselves. Just have a look. Let's unmute everybody. You can all unmute yourselves, and we can talk. And I'll show you this.
It's beautiful.
Gorgeous. Lovely.
Gorgeous. Really lovely.
I'm not sure if you can see it. Hang on, let me try the other camera just for a moment. See if I can get a better view of it. Is that better?
Yeah.
Is that better? Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
The colour's
Yeah.
the colour's
Yeah.
a bit
Yeah.
odd. It's actually, that's got all very orange. It's redder than that. It's cooler and redder, especially around here. But I just wanted to show the actual sort of the textures.
Fabulous.
I don't know whether that
That's
helps.
super.
That helps.
Lovely.
Really lovely.
Okay, and I tried, because I'm a bit of an obsessive completist, and I tend to go very quite far in my paintings when I probably needn't. So that's my view. So does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, Kevin, what size is that?
11 inches by 7 inches.
Okay.
There seems to be the optimum size that I can fit on a screen when I've got something else showing. Yeah.
Sorry, a very basic question now. Excuse my ignorance. You use oil and you use turps. What ratio? When do you use them?
Well, you know, the kind of the earlier stages when you've got a lot of area to cover when you're
Mm-hmm.
blocking in, you could put a bit of terps in, but or oil. Um,
And does it matter which either or is it better? Well, is one better than the other, or why
well,
do you have
I
both?
suppose oil is better, really, but because you know, varnish used to be made from linseed oil. It dries extremely hard and very durably. But
Yeah.
and if you're breaking down the linseed oil with terps all the time, maybe it doesn't crystallize as well. So
Okay.
if you want your painting to last 500 years,
All right.
probably oils.
I wouldn't
But
worry about that.
really, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
too much.
Doesn't
Just
matter.
don't use too much, I suppose. It's okay in the wash, but then after that, you can't put too much terps in because you'll affect
Okay.
the setting time of the paint, I think. And then there's also oil. If you use oil, the painting will probably take slightly longer to dry.
Okay.
But there is something nice about using linseed oil when you're painting, as long as you don't use too much. It kind of has
Yep.
it sets quite easily, more than
Yeah,
you'd
what about
expect.
liquid?
Liquin is great, and I use liquin. I always say if you want to finish a painting quickly and hang it,
Yeah,
use
use liquid.
use liquin. But
Mm.
there's an artist said to me one time, says, "Be careful of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not good for you. Use it in a well ventilated area. It is quite. I mean, it smells toxic.
It does,
So even
yeah.
though I use it, maybe we shouldn't use it so much.
So
Use
much,
little
yeah.
bits of it. It is quite smelly, isn't it, and volatile.
You were going to say,
How do you clean oil brushes? Sorry, as
Terps.
watercolor, I just wash it.
Yeah,
Terps.
no, yeah, terps. You need terps and then soap. You can get special soaps for washing brushes. I buy that carbolic stuff that you get in pound shops, the red or pink stuff,
Yeah.
and I use that to wash my brushes. It seems to work perfectly well.
Yeah.
Or you can use washing up liquid. Just be careful
Okay.
of when you're washing your brushes. I'd use washing up gloves. The carbolic soap. It's no wonder people ended up with sort of
Yeah.
Yeah.
you
bad
were going to
hands.
explain about mud, Kevin.
Oh yeah. Well, especially when you're blocking out, you need to define the different areas of your painting and how you're going to treat them. So what I see very often is that people will be presented with a scene to paint, and it'll be the land with some trees sticking up into the sky, for example, and then they'll paint the entire sky, and then try and paint the tree onto it afterwards, which you could probably do. You can do that with watercolors.
Mhm.
You can do it with acrylics, but oils you can end up with painting that's all muddy because for instance, you've got the blue of the sky, and maybe the leaves are all red because it's autumn. Those are the opposite ends of the color wheel, and that's a prime way of making mud when you're
Yeah.
mixing those two. So you've got, if there were adjacent colors now, if it was blue and green, you'd have more of a chance of getting a successful mix if you're going to be doing that. So what you have to do in order to avoid it is identify the areas of your painting that and how you want to treat them. So there's a big red area. You say, okay, that general area there is mostly red. So you do that in mostly red. That general area there is mostly green. So you put use that green. The in between areas it's okay as if they kind of overlap and you get a bit of mud in those because nature is kind of muddy and it's not precise but so it kind of works in a painting. You just have to get used to it. If you're going to paint a sky with tree and leaves on it, identify the area which is mostly sky and paint it sky, and identify the area which is mostly occupied by the leaves of different colours and paint those, and then you bring them together in that interstitial area where you can get a bit muddy.
Yeah.
As long as you don't make the whole thing muddy. That's what people talk about when they talk about muddy paintings in oils.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
That takes a while because very often you kind of start into a painting, think, oh bloody hell, why did I paint this? why did I take this on? It's going to take ages, and I don't know what to do with the sky. But you just have to you have to work your way through that, and the more you do it, the more you accept the failings of the entire process, and you just do it anyway, and your own failings, of course. Yeah. And every painting is just a stepping stone to the next one, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
No, you enjoy that bit rather than saying, I want to paint a perfect painting, because you won't.
Yeah, just enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah. And that's the same with everything, isn't it, in life?
Yeah.